So one of the items that we covered this week, if you remember, was the vote in the Senate where 16 Democrats, 16 Senate Democrats voted with every single Republican to weaken, if not totally gut, some of the provisions in the Dodd-Frank bill that was written to try to stop the banks from fucking over everybody again, like they did leading up to the Great Recession in 2007 and 8 and 9. Now, the bill is called the Economic Growth, Regulatory Relief, and Consumer Protection Act. Don't you love the way these dirty, slimy Republicans name shit, huh? Oh, boy. It's a bill that would peel back regulations on 25 of the 32 largest banks in America and at the same time remove just a whole bunch of consumer protections while relaxing those so-called stress tests, which were designed to make sure that a bank had enough liquidity, enough liquid assets either on hand or available to cover the loans and the paper that they were putting out there, right? I think that's the way it works. 10 of those Democrats co-sponsored this bill. See, this is why the Democratic Party is so fucked. It's people like this. This morning, Friday morning, at the Congressional Progressive Caucus Strategy Retreat in Baltimore, Senator Warren used her keynote address to try to embarrass these dirty bastards. She spoke about a series of recently lost policy fights. The Democrats always lose. On gun reform, the tax bill, the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, and more, Warren told the annual gathering of progressive elected officials and advocates, quote, "Just this week, we lost the first round in the battle of a bad banking bill, a bill that would take the reins off of Wall Street's most reckless actors and put as greater risk of another financial crisis. When I saw a handful of my Democratic colleagues vote for it, I felt a stab in the heart. Not for me, but for all the homeowners who were cheated and all the taxpayers who bailed out those banks. It's wrong," end quote. Now, the terrible reality is that very few people, relatively speaking, remember what happened when these great big goddamn banks started to fail. And it was Obama that he said he had to do this. I'm not going to argue with his political decision. But you and I paid for it. I can't afford to bail out banks. Can you? The American people, through our tax dollars, bailed these filthy, thieving, lying. I think about Wells Fargo and my gag reflex starts to kick in. I think about Goldman Sachs and I just want to scream. But this happens all the time. In a capitalist system, you, because you're a living, breathing human, you are superfluous. You don't count. And I'm not even on their screen. I don't exist either. What exists to capitalists is capital and the big boys who manipulate that capital. Now, Elizabeth Warren made it very clear that she's pissed off at Wall Street, but she also said she felt most betrayed by her own Democratic colleagues. I think that's very naive on her part because Elizabeth Warren is in the Senate. And she knows who the Democrats are, who are turncoats, cowards, liars, and should be fucking thrown out of the Democratic Party. She knows. So does Sanders. Sanders knows who they are. So for her to say she felt betrayed, if I knew her, I would say, yo, Elizabeth, you felt betrayed by people who are defined by the fact that they are betrayers? Oh, please. Really? She said, quote, "It is so hard to fight against all the money and all the lobbying. It is so hard to fight when we fight and lose. It's worse when some of our teammates don't even show up for the fight," end quote. And see, this is why this blue wave that everybody's talking about this November, you know, all these Democrats are going to surge into control of the House and the Senate. I don't want you to be horribly disappointed. So listen to Cousin Mike. That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. The reasons are many and varied, but it's not going to happen. But let me go back to this. She started off at this conference with so-called progressives with a little acknowledgement to the teachers that were mobilizing in West Virginia, and that worked, and Oklahoma. We don't know about that one yet. But she spent most of her address describing how she got involved in politics, interviewing people experiencing bankruptcy for her first book entitled As We Forgive Our Debtors, Bankruptcy and Consumer Credit in America, which came out way back in 1989. Wow. Anyway, what she learned, she says, through that process was that, quote, "This isn't a story about economics. This is a story about power, about who has it and who doesn't. In this relationship between lender and borrower, the lender has the power." You're right. And since the lender has the power, and it's not in any way, shape, or form a level playing field between the borrower and the lender, oh, please. Since the lender does have the power, then there has to be, especially in the capitalist system, there has to be, if not some rules, at least some regulations about how badly they can fuck the people who they're lending money to. Hey, I'm lending you money. What do you want? A fair shake. A few days earlier, Elizabeth Warren tweeted out the names of the Democrats and the Republicans who had voted for this deregulatory bill. She wrote, quote, "Senate Republicans voted unanimously for the Bank Lobbyists Act, but this bill wouldn't be on the path to becoming law without the support of these Democrats. The Senate just voted to increase the chances your money will be used to bail out big banks again." Now, you can, I'm sure you probably already have gotten the list of those Democrats who said to the people who put them in office, oh, no, come on, Malloy, who said to the people who provided them with the vigorish, the money, the grease, the juice to get into office, those Democrats said to those people, "Hey, I may have a D behind my name, but I'll take care of you. Just keep the money coming in. Okay, okay, okay." I'm so old, I remember when the Democratic Party really was a party of the people. Oh, that sounds so quaint now, doesn't it? Doesn't that sound so 1950s? The party of the people.